It all kicks off with Seika, who spends his days styling on demons from the back of a dragon. He's fully convinced his god-tier skills come from his own grind, and he's pretty full of himself since it lets him play hero for the week. Too bad that loyalty is a myth, and one night he gets a massive knife in the back. The royal court decides he's officially lived too long. Even as the world's top exorcist, he finds it absolutely trashy that they dragged his students into this death trap. Now bleeding out and surrounded by a literal dumpster fire, he says a final goodbye to his favorite student. He promises her a fresh start in some other life. Apparently, his next goal is becoming the ultimate magic nerd. Flash forward, and Seika is reborn as the third son of the Lamproach family, living in a world where humans and demons are awkward roommates. The local gossip suggests he's actually the result of his dad's side hustle relationship. Suddenly, dear old dad pulls out a spell to check the kid's magic stats. His siblings watch as the magic circle stays completely dark, leaving dad looking like he just saw his bank account hit zero. But Seika isn't sweating it, because he plans to trade magical energy for pure spiritual flex. The next morning, he hits the backyard to collect leaves, since he's apparently too broke for paper. He recites a throwback spell from his past life, and suddenly the foliage starts catching air. He turns them into birds and rats, even keeping a few as pets. When his brother Glai shows up to be a total pest, Seika shuts him down by the throat and demands some respect. Then Seika sends his crow squad to dive-bomb his own brother. The guy ends up crying on the grass. Luft shows up to kill the fun, chasing the birds away and helping the loser stand back up. Seika just wanted some peace and feels pretty good about nailing his old summoning tricks again. He hits age 7, but there's no cake because he's the extra child that the family tries to pretend doesn't exist. He spends his time Googling the world manually and figuring out how to make his own paper. He notices this place looks a lot like a bootleg version of old-school Europe. While working, he realizes his coat is missing, but the maid, Ifa, pops up to say she found it in the weeds. He's about to thank her when his brother storms in, mad that the maid isn't doing her chores. Glai starts bragging about how he's heading off to a fancy magic prep school soon. It's the same place where all the top-tier government wizards graduated. He tells Seika he'll never get in, but Dad shuts him up and tells them both to get to class. Glai listens, and before they bail, Seika asks if he can tag along for the lesson. The dad doesn't say a word, just gives him the silent whatever nod. Soon, the siblings start showing off their basic-level magic tricks. Glai spits some fire and dares Seika to try and do better. Seika plays along to avoid the drama, but he accidentally overdoes it by mixing rocks and chemicals to launch a massive fireball. The family is shook, and Dad mentions that some ancient legends could actually use magic without a mana battery. Seika asks to go to school, but Dad says the academy is a hard no for him. Instead, he gets a private tutor at home, which Seika actually thinks is a win. Over the next few days, he turns into a total sponge for info, learning about magic and the wind. He even tags along on city trips with the siblings. He even picks up some history. By age 11, Seika is basically a genius and starts missing his old supernatural spirit squad. He wonders if he can still call them up from the ghost dimension he left them in. He tries to summon the least lethal one, and after a bit of a struggle, a portal rips open in front of him. A girl jumps out, recognizes him instantly, and tackles him with a hug. He tells her he goes by Seika now and asks why she looks like she went through a filter. The girl, Yuki, has absolutely no clue. He figures the physics of this new world are just messing with her vibes. He admits he was just testing the signal, but she makes it clear she is not going back to the void. She turns into a tiny mascot and hides in his clothes so no one spots her. Later, he catches his brother Glai bullying Ifa because she accidentally tripped and ruined his outfit. He tells her to come to his room later so he can teach her a lesson, which sounds super creepy. But Seika steps in, saying he's already got plans for Ifa that night. This tilts Glai, who really hates being told no. He tries to swing at Seika, but gets folded instantly and walks away molting. The maid is super grateful, but he tells her to chill and asks her to follow him for a minute. Once they're outside, she finds a weird monster baby and asks him if he can play vet. Seika says he'll try, but tells her to look away so he can concentrate better. In reality, he just doesn't want her seeing his weird ghost paper magic. He heals the little creature with a spell, and it runs off like nothing happened. Ifa is hyped and thinks he's a secret master of the healing arts. He tells her she's actually got some moves too, since he's seen her chasing spirits around. She's shocked and asks if he can actually see the spooky stuff too. Seika confirms it, and Ifa mentions her mom told her to never talk about it, but Seika admits he's always seen the mana-sniffing spirits. They usually hang around his stuff, but are too scared to actually touch him. He thinks it's weird and asks if she's ever talked to them. Ifa says once they were being annoying, so she yelled at them to go away and they actually listened. This gets Seika thinking, because only some legendary foxes could boss spirits around like that in his old world. He tried to learn that trick before and failed miserably. He sees an opening to try a new experiment and asks Ifa if she wants to learn some real magic. She claims she's low on mana, but he secretly summons a fire-eyed lady spirit to test her. Ifa is visibly shook. She thinks it's a monster, and he tells her to try and make it vanish. Ifa tries talking to it nicely, but after it screams in her face, she makes it delete itself. Seika is grinning because she's a natural, and he promises they'll train together whenever they can sneak away. They spend their days grinding levels and occasionally relaxing. Eventually, his birthday rolls around, and Seika isn't expecting any party favors since he's the family's secret shame. Walking through the halls, his siblings corner him and say they want to help him practice. They basically tell him since he's a magicless nobody, he'll probably just end up as cannon fodder in the army. Luft tries to play nice, offering to show him some basic sword-swinging tips. But a maid runs in screaming that a monster is trashing the local town. Dad was fighting it, but the thing ran into the woods and is currently headed straight for the house. Seika tries to tell Luft it's already here, and right on cue, a massive roar shakes the place. Everyone loses their minds at the sight of a giant triton, while Luft tries to keep it together. He's shocked to see Seika charging out alone to save Ifa, who's busy trying to help another maid. Suddenly, a flash of fire hits the beast, which surprises Seika because it looks like a spirit attack. Ifa probably did that on accident, but Seika gets hyped and starts boxing the monster while the whole family watches from the windows. Seika makes his move and drops a spell that freezes the creature in its tracks instantly. He used a specific poison that's basically kryptonite for amphibians, plus some fire magic just to be extra petty against this overgrown salamander. Back at the house, everyone is treating Seika like a rock star for one-shotting a monster, making Luft look like a proud big brother. Luft cheers him on, and Seika just smirks because everything is going exactly to plan. He's going to be way smarter and way happier in this life than the last one. Meanwhile, Dad is still buffering from the shock, and later they throw a massive feast to celebrate. Blaze admits that even a pro adventurer would have struggled with that monster. He asks how Seika knew its weak spot, and Seika just lies and says he read it in a book somewhere. Dad wants to give him a reward, so Seika stands up and finally drops the bomb. He wants to go to the academy. Dad is floored by the idea of him studying magic, but then he remembers all the weird stuff Seika's been doing. He finally gives in without a fight. This makes Gly's blood boil, but Seika adds one more condition: Ifa is coming with him. Blaze basically tells her it's time to put up or shut up. He hands the girl a wand and tells her to show the class what she's actually learned. Ifa is buzzing at the thought of sticking with Seika, so she lets off a massive fire blast that leaves everyone shook. The dad finally caves and says they can both go, assuming they can actually pass the entrance exams. Gly starts whining, pointing out that the family tree usually only has room for one magic prodigy. Blaze isn't having it and drops the hammer on Gly, telling him that since he's been a total disappointment lately, he's getting shipped off to military school instead. This absolutely triggers Gly, who can't handle the fact that his dad is picking the side chick's son over him. Fuming, he challenges Seika to a duel where the winner takes the spot at the Magic Academy. And if Seika loses, he's officially homeless with nowhere else to go. Even though Gly's mom thinks this is a terrible idea, Blaze figures it's the best way to settle the beef. The showdown is set for high noon the next day, with Dad playing the role of the world's most awkward referee. A few hours later, Seika is chilling in his room. He's mid-cookie when Luft walks in to apologize for being late and hands him a birthday gift. Seika says thanks, and his brother gets all emotional, apologizing for not giving him the respect he deserved. He's actually hyped for Seika to hit the academy and hopes he becomes a legendary wizard. He also asks Seika to try not to turn Gly into a grease spot during the duel. Seika agrees and tells his brother he's the real MVP of the family. Later, Seika is chatting with Yuki when a magic chain smashes through the window, courtesy of a very impatient Gly. Seika heads out to find Gly screaming that they're fighting right now, rules be damned. Before Seika can even blink, Gly tries to delete him with a fire explosion. Gly is laughing because he can cast without talking now, but Seika just stands there completely unbothered and tells him his technique is actually pretty trash. Seika pops a protective cube that eats every spell Gly throws at him. Then he summons a spirit and basically hits the pause button on Gly's entire body. At the same time, Seika uses his paper magic to make his brother scream like a toddler. Seika asks if he's done yet, and Gly taps out before the pain knocks him out cold. Yuki wonders why he didn't just take the guy out permanently. Seika explains this was all part of the master plan, including that time he secretly summoned the Triton and hid it behind a magic shield just for show. Even if the monster went a bit off script in the city, he still got what he wanted. He's not going to be a show-off like he was in his previous life. This time he's playing it smart and pretending to be just another face in the crowd. A few days pass and Seika says his goodbyes to Luft as he packs up for the long haul to the academy. He spends the entire trip buried in books, prepping for the exams like his life depends on it. The travel is rough and Seika gets pretty motion sick, but they finally make it to the city of Donia. Back at the home office, Blaze is doing some math and realizes it's been 12 years since that weird night. A woman had shown up in a storm with a baby, claiming it was the son of his brother Gilbert, who was more of a reckless nomad than a noble. Gilbert disappeared into demon territory and never came back, but the kid was always a bit off with those eyes and the fact that he was casting at age 1. Dad even had a theory that the kid might be part demon. He dropped that idea when he saw Seika had 0 mana, but now he's seen the kid throw fireballs made of rocks and use lethal poisons, which is definitely not normal. He knows Gly is still salty about the whole thing, but he realizes that if he sent Seika to the army, the kid would probably just end up running the place, and he'd rather he just be a mage. So he's just hoping the kid doesn't break the world. Meanwhile, Seika is finally crashing in his hotel room, but Ifa is acting weird about them having separate beds and asks if she should sneak into his room later. Since he's technically her owner now, Seika is completely oblivious and tells her she can eat whatever she wants at the buffet. The poor girl is totally shut down and leaves to go find some actual food. Yuki sees exactly what's happening and gets annoyed at the competition, but she also roasts Seika for being a total disaster when it comes to understanding women. Seika ignores the shade and just focuses on the big exam day ahead. They get to the academy, and Seika immediately feels the air thick with magical energy. He brushes it off as par for the course and heads to the testing area to find his spot in line. The other students start whispering when they hear his fancy last name, expecting some big show. A random girl starts grilling Ifa, who has to explain that she's basically his magical sidekick. The proctor tells them to put their hands on a crystal ball that measures how much juice they have and what flavor of magic they use. Ifa goes first and shows she's a pro with fire and wind, getting her a golden ticket immediately. When Seika touches the ball, it does absolutely nothing, which confuses the proctor. She asks if he's into light or dark magic, since the ball is apparently blind to those types. Seika just tells her he's running on an empty tank of mana, which shocks the whole crowd. The other kids start talking trash, saying he's just another rich kid using a legacy admission to skip the hard work. Just then, a girl named Amu steps up, making it clear she's just a regular commoner. She shoves her way to the front. She touches the crystal, and it lights up the whole room, showing she can use all 4 elements, which is basically a cheat code. As she leaves, Seika tries to be polite and thank her for the distraction, but she just tells him she's in a hurry and thinks a mana-less noble shouldn't be wasting everyone's time before she walks away. Seika is stunned, mostly because he's seeing a pattern. She looks exactly like his best student from his past life, which definitely grabs his attention. Eventually, he and Ifa wrap up the boring written part of the exam, but his brain is stuck on Amiyu and just how much power she's actually packing. They move on to the practical exam where the teacher explains they have to blast some targets with their best moves to see what they're made of. The students start popping off their spells, but none of them really impress the teacher until Ifa steps up to the plate. The girl is a bit nervous, but Seika gives her a quick pep talk. She locks onto the target and fires a massive beam of heat that turns heads everywhere. It was a high-level spell, and she didn't even have to say a single word to cast it. Ifa feels bad for nearly melting the target and moves on to the next portion of the test. She uses her wind powers to turn the next target into a pincushion, leaving the other kids speechless. Seika tells her good job, admitting even he didn't know she could go that hard. Ifa is beaming and mentions she's been doing some extra practice on the side. Even if she's only a 2-element mage, Seika thinks she's already outclassing the room. Now it's his turn to step into the spotlight. The crowd is basically waiting for him to fail since he's the no-magic kid. But then Seika pulls out those weird blue fireballs that look like they belong in a horror movie and don't seem to go out. For his next trick, he uses some earth magic. He doesn't just break the target, he turns the rocks into entirely different materials, which makes the teacher's brain short-circuit. He doesn't stop to explain the science and just keeps moving down the line. He uses a spirit to blast the target with water that instantly turns into razor-sharp ice crystals, which is just showing off at this point. He claims he's only good at those few elements, which even Ifa finds hard to believe. Seika honestly thinks he's still a work in progress compared to his peak days. Ifa can't help but laugh at how much he's freaking out the entire school. Later, a senior professor walks over to the testing area to ask what the hell just happened. The proctor says it was a circus, specifically highlighting the manaless noble and his powerhouse maid, which gets Professor Karen's attention. He mentions there was one student who basically deleted every target with pure raw power. Karen starts to wonder if this girl is the prophesied hero from the old stories. The one who's supposed to show up right before the Demon King makes a comeback. The next day, Seika and Ifa go to check their scores. Ifa is sweating it, but Seika finds his name sitting comfortably in 3rd place. Meanwhile, Ifa is practically vibrating because she snagged 2nd place, which catches him totally off guard. He also sees that Amiyu took the top spot, realizing he finally found the specific person he's been hunting for. A few hours later, they're both officially in, and Seika is already dragging his companion toward the big welcome ceremony. On the way, he feels a weird vibe, and Ifa points out that some dark spirits are lurking in the shadows. They trace it back to a sketchy floor rune that looks like bad news, so he decides to play it cool and not touch it. He still leaves a few paper spirits behind to keep an eye on the situation, though. Shortly after, they walk into the hall just as Amiyu is getting ready to give the "I'm the best" speech. She's giving the standard, work hard and dream big talk to the other students. But Seika notices that the sketchy floor trap he saw earlier just went live. A second later, the doors get kicked in by 3 low-level demons looking for a fight. The other kids try to fight back with basic spells, but they might as well be throwing pebbles. Seika thinks about stepping in, but Amiyu beats him to the punch, protecting a classmate while pulling off some high-level sword and magic combos. She tells anyone with a spine to start swinging. Seika, however, realizes these demons are basically remote-controlled drones. He uses his paper spirits to sniff out the guy pulling the strings and heads straight for his location. The demon is genuinely shocked to see a human kid find his hiding spot so easily. Seika basically tells him he was bored and looking for a way to kill some time. This gets under the demon's skin, so he summons 3 more goons to jump him. Seika deletes 2 and boxes up the 3rd, which actually impresses the demon enough to make him fight for real. The kid tries to use his paper magic again, but this guy, Gull, is actually fast enough to see them and block the attacks. Seika is actually surprised for once as he ducks a flying sword. Gull teleports his blade and manages to nick Seika's cheek, laughing about how a brat could never touch a pro like him. Then he drops a fire attack and teleports behind Seika, successfully hacking off the kid's entire arm. Seika barely even bleeds, and just asks how the demon is tracking his movements. Gull thinks the kid is brave and decides to reveal the big secret as a parting gift. He's here to assassinate the hero. Seika asks if the hero is even a real thing, but Gull insists the legend is 100% legit, and he's found his target. He describes a red-haired girl with insane power, and Seika realizes he's talking about Amiyu, which the demon happily confirms. The demon then stabs Seika twice and chops his head off, thanking him for being a minor inconvenience that's finally out of the way. But Seika's voice pops up again, casually mentioning some old poem his teacher used to recite. He says he never really got the meaning because he was too busy killing everyone. Since Seika is essentially a monster himself, the demon is losing his mind that the kid is still talking and throws a dagger. The weapon just vanishes when it hits him, and he heals back to full health in seconds. Gull realizes Seika is basically a human cockroach, so he vows to kill him as many times as it takes to make it stick. He's determined to clear the path to the hero, no matter what. Seika just laughs it off, reminding the demon that having raw power isn't the same thing as having actual strength. The demon thinks that's a load of garbage, believing that anyone with enough power can force the world to kneel. Seika gives him a knowing smile, says he's been there and done that, and then starts flooding the place with water magic. While Gull tries to teleport for a backstab, Seika pulls out a sealed monster that releases a massive electrical shock. Gull manages to stab him in the back, but Seika just turns around and grins, letting him know that touching him was a huge mistake. He triggers a huge blast and instantly reappears a safe distance away, letting a substitute take the hit. Gull is still talking big, thinking Seika is running out of tricks and lives, but Seika just finds the whole situation hilarious. He summons thousands of paper spirits to surround the guy, deciding to finally end the show with his most illegal-sounding summoning spell. A bunch of portals rip open to his private dimension, and that's when his dragon Mizuchi makes an entrance. Gull is frozen with fear, because not even the Demon King can pull a dragon out of thin air like that. Seika just casually explains that this is a special Oriental-style dragon. Mizuchi snaps Gull up like a snack, flies him into the clouds, and bites him into 2 pieces before swallowing the rest. The dragon tries to make a break for it, so Seika has to use his magic to chase it down before it causes a scene. He kicks Mizuchi back to the ghost world, while Yuki cheers him on for actually winning for once. She does wonder if using a literal dragon was a bit of overkill for such a scrub-tier demon. A few minutes later, Seika walks back into the school and finds the place looking like a war zone. A shaky Ifa tells him Amiyu took out the demons herself, which is exactly what Seika wanted everyone to believe. He needs the narrative to stay focused on her. He wants the whole world to think she's the invincible hero and the most powerful person alive. That way, when the inevitable betrayal happens, he won't be the one feeling the sting this time. He's going to make sure she becomes the most famous person on the planet. Meanwhile, he'll just enjoy his peaceful life in the background, exactly a month later when things have calmed down. Amiyu is still giving him the cold shoulder, but he's not really sweating it. He does start wondering how to actually talk to her, since he's got 0 experience in the friendship department. While walking with Ifa, he senses something about to crush them and teleports them out of the way. A teacher named Caudle shows up to apologize, saying he was just trying to move some dark magic crates. The guy is clearly bad at it, but Seika finds it suspicious that a human can even juggle 2 types of magic at once. They head to Professor Karen's class, where she announces a little field trip to the forest for the top students. Seika smells a demon-shaped rat, so he asks what happens if the second-place student, Ifa, decides to skip it. Karen says the spot would then go to the third-place student, which is him. Seika tells Ifa to bail on the trip so he can get some alone time with Amiyu, and she agrees. After class, he says sorry for forcing her to give up her spot. But Ifa says it's fine and asks if he's actually into girls like Amiyu. He says he's not interested in her that way, he just needs her to be his best friend. He wants the world to fear her power, and he figures having the world's strongest person on his side is just good business. This makes Ifa a bit sad because she wants to be strong too, but she decides to keep following him anyway. The next day, Seika catches up with Amiyu, who has no idea why he's bothering her. He says he just wanted a chat, but then he spots a magic rune. Before they can react, it teleports them to a cave filled with 3 angry lizards. Amiyu deletes 2 of them instantly with a sword and magic combo that even impresses Seika. A bigger monster shows up, and Seika uses wood magic to turn it into a pincushion. Amiyu is stunned by the move. Seika just makes up a lie about his family having some secret, underground library of spells. She figures they're stuck in a dungeon and they need to find an exit. They start walking because standing still is a great way to get eaten. Seika pulls out 2 glowing spirits to act as flashlights, lying and saying they're just basic charms. Amiyu is happy to have some light, even if she doesn't fully buy his story. Meanwhile, Seika is leaving a trail of paper spirits so the people back on the surface can find them. Suddenly, a whole mob of monsters blocks their path. Amiyu goes into a frenzy, hacking off a giant goblin's arm like it's nothing. She gets distracted, so Seika has to jump in and shield her from the other goblins. She passes out from the impact, so Seika summons a giant centipede to finish the job for her. A few minutes later, she wakes up and sees a pile of dead monsters everywhere. Seika asks if she's okay, and she's confused because she doesn't have a single scratch on her. Her head starts hurting again, but Seika pops a barrier that makes the pain go away. He explains that she's probably under a curse, and his shield is keeping it at bay. Amiyu admits she's been feeling like garbage ever since she got to the academy. He thinks someone might be hitting her with a long-range curse. She immediately gets up and asks him to check her body for any weird marks or tattoos. Seika finds absolutely zero evidence on her skin, so he figures it's some specialized type of curse. Amiyu asks if there's any way to scrub this thing off her, so he asks her for a single strand of hair. He sets up one of his paper spirits to act as a magical body double. He tells her that if the charm gets trashed or goes missing, she needs to call him so he can fix her up. Amiyu gets nosy and asks if he's got something going on with Ifa. Seika shoots that down, saying they're just platonic, and mentions he's the family's black sheep anyway, so Ifa was the only one who actually liked him. That makes Amiyu feel like a total jerk for asking. She assumed that being a noble meant he was living the high life on easy mode. To change the subject, she mentions her mom is a big deal in the local guild. Apparently, her dad is still out there playing adventurer too. Because of them, she's been obsessed with throwing hands since she was a toddler. She was a natural at it and was already running high-level missions with the pros while she was still a kid. The older adventurers thought she was a freak because she actually had fun while everyone was dying. Even when her teammates were getting deleted, Amiyu just wanted to keep the grind going. The guild eventually ghosted her, so she joined the academy hoping to find a hobby that didn't involve so much bloodshed. That plan failed immediately because fighting demons reminded her that violence is her true love. Seika tells her that's not weird at all and thinks she just hasn't found the right squad yet. People call her a monster, but he thinks the world is the problem, not her. He believes she just hasn't found a stage big enough for her talent. His words actually give her a much-needed ego boost, which she wasn't expecting. Suddenly, one of his paper spirits lights up, and Seika says they need to move. Since this is her first real dungeon crawl, he doesn't want it to end on a boring note. Amiyu agrees and they start carving through monsters until they hit the boss room. It's a massive beast, and taking it on is basically a suicide mission. Seika pumps her up, saying they can take it if they tag-team the thing. The girl charges in without a second thought. His first spell fizzles out and does absolutely nothing. He has to pull some matrix moves to avoid the giant snake's acid spit. While dodging, he maps out exactly how to kill it. Amiyu plays the distraction while he gets into position. He summons a bunch of metal spikes that turn the monster into a shish kebab. Amiyu then hits the spikes with fire magic, causing a chain reaction of explosions. She finishes the job by slicing what's left of the creature. Winning the fight has her feeling like she's on top of the world. Yuki asks if he already knew the exit was right there, and he admits it, but says he wanted Amiyu to feel like a hero. He loots the boss drops, snagging a new sword and a shiny ring. They finally get out and tell the teachers about the secret basement they found. The faculty had no clue there was a dungeon under their feet. Later, Seika tracks down the guy who cursed Amiyu and corners Professor Cordell. He asks the teacher what his deal is. Cordell is confused how a kid caught him, but Seika just tells him to drop the act and show his true colors. Cordell brags about being a human traitor working with demons, using a slow-acting curse that's apparently foolproof. He thinks he's too close to the finish line to be stopped now. Seika points out that the curse is already backfiring on the teacher's own tools. He explains the spell only targets people covered in demon blood, which currently means Amiyu. Then he casually summons a demon just to kill it. He bathes himself in the blood and starts an incantation. He's literally volunteering to take the curse himself. Cordell thinks he's gone insane, but Seika just gives him a creepy smile. He starts a prayer that reverses the magic, sending the curse straight back to the person who sent it. The professor realizes he's screwed and tries to run, but the magic hits him instantly. With his last breath, he asks Seika what he actually is. Seika says the teacher's curse was cute, but he picked a fight with someone who literally wrote the book on dark magic. Yuki asks how he knew it was the teacher. He says his paper spirits found specific flower pollen on the guy that only grows near the cursed ruins. A year passes, and Seika is celebrating Amiyu's good grades, relieved that no more assassins have shown up lately. Everything is chill until the deputy director calls him in. He's told to report to the director's office tomorrow and to bring Ifa along for some reason. He meets the director the next day and finds her surprisingly polite. She's not the stuck-up type he expected and thinks she reminds him of someone. Seika asks if she knows his dad, but she says she's actually talking about his uncle, which is news to him. She cuts the small talk and gets to business. She needs 2 students to represent the school in a big tournament. The first spot is already taken by a girl named Mabel, who walks in looking bored. The director says the second spot is between him and Ifa, and he gets to pick. Later, he tells Amu he's going, and she's pissed that she was overlooked for the job. Seika explains the school is probably hiding her, so the Royal Guard doesn't try to draft her. So they're sending him and Mabel as the B team, but Amu is still pretty salty about it. She assumes Mabel is just some rich girl getting a participation trophy and thinks she'll lose in 2 seconds. Mabel overheard her and says that if Amu wasn't picked, it's just because she's trash. Amu is officially triggered and grabs 2 practice swords from some nearby students. She tosses one to Mabel to settle things and asks Seika to act as the judge. He lets them fight because he wants to see if Mabel is actually any good. Mabel eventually gets the upper hand and shatters Amu's sword, telling her she's weak as she hits the ground. Amu complains that it was supposed to be a sword fight, not a magic duel. Seika noticed that Mabel was definitely cheating with some dark magic under the table. Still, Amu takes the loss and tells Seika he better take the tournament seriously or he'll die. She warns him that things are about to get very dangerous for everyone involved. A few days later, Seika is on a carriage to the capital, wondering why Amu tagged along. The girl claims she's only there because she considers him a real friend now. Seika knows she's really just there to scout out the competition. Since Ifa is already his partner, he tries to ignore his motion sickness while watching Mabel act like a brat. Mabel says everyone at the school is a bunch of immature losers. Seika reminds her they're teenagers, but she says that's not an excuse. He decides to stop talking to her before he says something he'll regret. He goes back to staring out the window and waiting for the nausea to pass. They finally reach the capital after a long, bumpy ride. The city is packed because of the tournament crowd. As soon as they jump out, he notices Mabel has already disappeared into the crowd. He tells the girls he needs to check out the arena to confirm his suspicions. He realizes that if he and Mabel both keep winning, they'll have to fight each other in the semifinals. He tells the girls to go shopping and have fun without him for a while. He just wants to lie down and stop feeling like he's going to puke. While resting, he sends out his paper spirits to find out why the school swapped Amu for him. The tournament officially starts the very next morning. It used to be just swords, but now they let any kind of freak show enter. You lose if you get knocked out or if your life charm gets taken. Seika checks the amulet and sees it's designed to tank damage. His name gets called and he finds out he's fighting a famous veteran warrior. The guy starts talking trash about beating up a little noble kid. Seika just tells him he has a headache and wants to get this over with. The warrior gets mad and charges in for the kill. He thinks he landed a hit, but it was just a paper deco. Seika drops from the ceiling with a wind spell that slams the guy into a wall. The veteran is out cold instantly, and Seika takes the win without even breaking a sweat. The entire arena is picking their jaws up off the floor because of how fast he just ended that man's career. Seika realizes he really needs to start holding back before he blows his cover. Yuki is worried he's becoming a local celebrity, but he assures her that he's totally on top of it. Right now, he's more obsessed with his paper spirits because he needs to suck up all the local intel he can. He grabs a seat with the squad to watch a mage go up against a swordsman named Kyle. Kyle is a total mystery, so when the bell rings, the mage starts to trash talk but freezes when Kyle just walks up and stabs him through the chest. Seika leans in, realizing things just got real as Kyle wins, and the other guy becomes the tournament's first corpse. The crowd, being bloodthirsty, absolutely loves it. Seika clocks Kyle's dead eyes and immediately pins him as a professional hitman. He starts wondering if they've got any evil eye users in the mix who can curse people just by looking at them. The second round kicks off the next day with Seika facing a girl whose golem is basically immune to standard magic. The audience thinks he's finally met his match. But as soon as the clock starts, he summons a spiritual beast for a quick assist. In a blink, the golem is sliced to ribbons, and the crowd just assumes he used some high-speed wind spell. Seika politely asks her to give up, and she wisely decides she'd rather stay in one piece. He's a bit paranoid that if anyone realizes he's summoning spirits, he'll get kicked out for cheating. He heads back to the girls, where Ifa is acting like a worried mom about the whole situation. He tells her to relax because he's not about to do anything actually dangerous. He isn't even lying to her. To him, this entire tournament is basically like playing a game on easy mode. Yuki points out that it's Mabel's turn to fight an experienced earth mage. The mage starts spamming stone blasts like he's playing a video game. Mabel just treats them like target practice and shatters them with her swords. The guy tries to charge up a bigger spell to take her down. Seika watches closely, knowing that mid-tier magic isn't going to touch someone as fast as Mabel. He puts up a wall, but she just carves through it with her daggers like she's cutting through butter. Seika is actually pretty impressed by her. He wonders if she's using gravity magic to make those daggers hit like a semi-truck. He can't tell if she's buffing them mid-air, but it's clear she's spent a lot of time grinding her stats for this. The mage tries one last ultimate move, but Mabel shuts him down before he can even finish the chant. She puts a blade to his throat and he taps out, sending the crowd into a frenzy. The announcer starts screaming about the red-haired heroine has arrived. Seika is confused, but Amu points out she shares a name and a sword with a legendary figure. Suddenly, all the pieces of this weird puzzle start falling into place for him. The next morning at 4 a.m., he uses a spirit to intercept a spy pigeon and confronts the guy who sent it. The spy tries to play dumb and attack, but Seika pins him down and explains he was eavesdropping the whole time. The guy is rattled and asks who he is, since he clearly isn't just some noble's kid. Seika is actually surprised to see a familiar face. He confirms the guy is a demon spy, but the man just sneers and says he's not talking. Seika decides to skip the interrogation and summons Satori, a mind-reading spirit, to do the work. Satori starts digging through the guy's brain for all his dirty secrets. He asks who the boss is, and Satori blabs a bit more than Seika actually wanted her to. She starts scrambling the spy's memories for fun. Seika confirms that demons have infiltrated the High Court to hunt down the heroine, Mabel. It's a shock to everyone involved. Satori asks the spy why he thinks Mabel is the chosen one. The spy thinks about her birth year, but some of his info about the Academy assassins is clearly wrong. Based on how she fights, the demons are now 100% convinced that Mabel is their target. Seika thanks the spirit and lets her eat the spy as a reward, which she does happily. She tries to read Seika's mind too, so he threatens to delete her from existence before sending her back home. He tries to read the spy's coded message afterward, but it's total gibberish to him. It doesn't matter though, because he's already figured out the Academy's little game. He tells Yuki that the school sent Mabel to the tournament as a decoy to protect Amiyu. By making Mabel look like the heroine, they've successfully diverted the demon's attention. Since Seika killed the only guys who knew the truth a year ago, the plan is working perfectly. The demons are now chasing a ghost, and he's fine with Mabel taking the heat. If she's acting as a shield for Amiyu, she's doing his job for him. He figures he'll find out why he was sent along as the tag-along pretty soon. Later that day, he watches another mage win with a full set of elemental powers. That guy moves on to the next round because his opponent just quit, exactly like Kyle's match. The mage tells Seika he's looking forward to seeing him in the final match. Seika then goes up against a necromancer and beats him without even trying. Mabel wins her match too and tells Seika he should probably just forfeit the semifinals. He says no thanks because he actually wants to see what she can do in a real fight. She warns him that she's not going to hold back and she'd hate to accidentally kill him. Seika points out that with everyone else quitting, they're basically forced to fight each other anyway. The announcer yells that since the other competitors bylaid, the first semifinal starts right now. Seika grabs his popcorn and watches Kyle immediately use his eyes to lock onto Riene the mage. Riene throws everything but the kitchen sink at him, but Kyle just walks through it like he's going for a stroll. Kyle is even deleting Riene's golems with basic magic as he closes the distance. Seika realizes that Kyle is using the exact same gravity magic as Mabel. Riene is panicking because his sword won't even move, and Kyle is just standing there menacingly. It's a total shutdown of the mage's entire kit. The whole scene reminds Seika of himself, since they both deal in dark, forbidden arts. The judges stop the fight and call it for Kyle before he can actually execute the other guy. That night, Yuki asks Seika if he's planning on losing his next match on purpose. He says yeah, because winning would be way too much work. Yuki turns back into a human and asks him to cuddle, which catches him off guard. Suddenly, one of his paper charms screams a warning at him. He barely ducks a dagger that Mabel throws at him from the roof. She tackles him out of the window, and they both tumble into the dark street below. Seika tries to get a spell off while he's falling to save his own neck. But Mabel is lightning fast and keeps him from pulling off any of his usual tricks. He only manages to dodge her blades by a few inches each time. A random guy hears the noise and checks it out, so Mabel throws a knife at him to keep him quiet. By the time Seika gets back on his feet, she's already vanished into the night. Now he's actually annoyed, because if she's going to play dirty, he's not going to take it lying down. He decides it's time to have a very serious talk with her. He finds her later while she's thinking about her brother and lets her know he's not dead yet. She pulls her sword, surprised that he's still acting like they're just going to have a chat. He tells her he's over the fighting and knows she wasn't actually trying to kill him. He noticed she purposely missed the drunk guy and that she's clearly not comfortable with those knives. Mabel admits she just wanted him out of the semifinals so she could win the whole thing. She even suspected that even if she stabbed him, he'd probably just heal himself like a zombie. Seika laughs and asks why she's so desperate to get to the final round. She says she needs the spotlight, but then admits there's a much darker reason. She wants to get absolutely wrecked by Kyle in the final match in front of everyone. She thinks if the hero looks pathetic, the demons will stop being afraid of her. Seika sees right through her and tells her to give him the real story so he can actually help. Mabel is shocked and confesses she and Kyle were both child soldiers raised by a merchant guild. The tournament is just a test to see if Kyle's brainwashing and surgeries actually worked. They literally cut out their emotions and turn them into fleshy, obedient robots. The guild puts kids into small groups of 4 to make them love each other before the operation. Then, once one kid is turned into a machine, they have to kill their 3 friends to prove they don't feel anything anymore. It's a sick way to ensure the perfect, heartless soldier is born. In their little squad, Kyle was the chosen one, and Mabel was supposed to be ghosted, but she got sold off instead. Now she's scheduled to die in the finals, though she admits she couldn't care less about the heroine legend or her old guild. All she's really hunting for is a bit of payback against Kyle for what he did to her brother. Apparently, Kyle was the one who personally retired him. Seika calls her out on her lies, pointing out that Kyle is actually her brother since they share the same eyes, and she clearly uses hair dye. Mabel is shook but admits that before his brain surgery, Kyle begged her to set him free if he ever turned into a robot, since the brother she knew is basically a memory now, replaced by a cold, unfeeling machine that follows orders. She feels like it's her job to finally put him down. She doesn't care if she fails, because if Kyle doesn't finish her off, her guild definitely will. So she's going for broke. Seika stands up and declares that he'll be the one to dismantle Kyle in the finals. But Mabel tells him he's dreaming and warns him that she's going to go all out during their own match. He just gives her a very confident smirk. He's determined to prove he's the top dog, leaving Mabel puzzled while Yuki mocks his inability to mind his own business. A few hours later, the bells ring and Seika is actually surprised by the massive weapon Mabel brings out. She promises no mercy and charges at him swinging a giant battle axe. He just dances around her using his paper spirit cheats. He uses one to make her axe weigh about as much as a small house. She brushes off his vines, so he summons some high-tier mercury vines that actually do the trick and pin her down. He walks up, grabs her axe like it's a feather, and holds it to her throat to end the show. The judges call it for him, and he's officially moving on to the final boss. He tells the girl to take 5 and promises he's got the rest handled. The next day the finals start, and Seika tells Kyle he's sorry it's not Mabel, but Kyle just says he'll kill her later once he's done with him. Seika tries to remind him that she's his sister, and he should at least offer a fake apology for being a jerk. But Kyle just says he has a job to do and starts swinging. Seika drops a smoke screen so the crowd can't see the illegal magic he's about to unload on this kid. But Kyle is a beast and shreds through everything, including the mercury vines like they're made of wet paper. Seika tells him that ditching his emotions was a major tactical error. Then he summons a literal titan named Ushioni that slams Kyle into the dirt with a single massive strike. Seika thanks his spirit for not accidentally leveling the entire stadium. He walks over to Kyle and gives him a lecture about how feelings are actually what make a person a pro. Yuki asks if he's actually going to let the little assassin live. Seika says yes, right as Kyle starts convulsing from a hidden curse planted by his own guild. Seika tries to put up a shield to stop the internal explosion, but he's a second too slow. Kyle is toasted and only has enough breath left to ask Seika to pass a message to his sister. Kyle dies right there and Seika is officially seeing red. He finds it insulting that some amateur thought they could outcurse him in his own backyard. In his old life, he was basically the god of this stuff and could raise the dead if the body wasn't a total mess. He starts charging up his delete world energy, but Yuki stops him, reminding him that he promised not to be a show-off. She points out that there's no point in wasting mana on a kid who meant nothing to him anyway. Seika takes a breath, realizes she's right and powers down the apocalypse. When the fog clears, he tells everyone he turned Kyle into ash, and they crown him the winner while the Emperor stays home. He doesn't care about the trophy, he just wants the fat stack of prize money. Later, Seika takes Mabel to where he buried her brother and says he's sorry things ended on such a dark note. She tells him she knew it was coming, suspecting her brother was bugged with a curse to keep him from ever being human again. Seika tells her that Mabel is indeed her real name, not just a cover. Kyle said it a dozen times before he passed, and he even apologized for some old drama involving a four-leaf clover. That makes Mabel lose it, remembering how she fought with him over a broken clover charm before his surgery changed everything. She finally forgives him, knowing he was still her brother at the end. Deep down, the machine hadn't completely erased the boy she loved. The headmistress admits she set the whole thing up because the guild was trying to play them, and she wanted to take their best weapon off the board. She wasn't about to let a student suffer if she could help it. So naturally, she used Seika as her personal win button for the entire tournament. He asks if she was worried he might actually lose, but she says she's old enough to know a powerhouse when she sees one. He asks her for her real age, but she just gives him a mysterious smile. Apparently, after 300 years, the candles on the cake get too expensive. A few days later, Seika is helping Mabel with her homework while the girls hang out nearby. Mabel finally lets her hair go back to its natural shade, done with the undercover life. Months go by and the kids are hyped for summer break, swapping plans for the holidays. Seika mentions he's been hired to check out a dragon that's having a midlife crisis near his dad's place. Since his dad is swamped, he's taking the gig solo because his grades at the academy are through the roof. Amiyu and Mabel try to invite themselves along for the ride, but he says no way, telling them they need to stay put and study. He does, however, ask Ifa to come with him, which she happily accepts. Suddenly, Prince Cecilio and his maid walk in like they own the joint. The prince looks around like he's in a dump and goes straight for Seika. He introduces himself as the Crown Prince of Esteria, fancy title and all. Seika is polite but says he was going to see him tomorrow anyway. The prince sees Ifa and instantly drops to one knee like he's in a romance novel. He invites her to join his harem, claiming she's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. Ifa is mortified and reminds him she's technically Seika's property for now. The prince tries to open his wallet to buy her, but his maid suggests they take this drama private. They were starting to attract a crowd of nosy students. A few minutes later, Seika gets the lowdown from the prince. The dragon in question has lived there for ages and was usually a pretty chill neighbor. It once even chased off an army for them, but lately it's been raiding local farms and eating the cattle like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Seika asks where the dragon actually came from, and the prince admits the history is a little fuzzy. Some legends say a queen actually gave birth to the egg, which is a wild story even for this world. Nothing is proven, so he wants Seika to play detective and find out the dragon's real origin story. Seika takes the job and they part ways for the evening. The girls swarm him immediately, wanting to know if he actually sold Ifa to the royal family. He says no, of course not. But he tells Ifa that if she actually wants to be a princess, he won't stand in her way. He just wants her to be happy whether she's with him or not. They hit the road the next morning to start the mission. Seika is already feeling car sick, but tries to chat with Ifa about the prince's weird invitation. She doesn't think the guy was serious about the whole marriage thing. Seika says it's totally possible because she's a catch, which makes her turn bright red. After over a week of traveling, they reach the old capital, which looks pretty peaceful at first glance. The prince says the local economy is tanking because everyone is terrified of the flying lizard. Just then, the dragon screams and flies right over their heads. Seika is floored by the size of the thing, and Cecilio calls it the Great Dragon for obvious reasons. It flies low enough to knock Ifa off her feet, but some mercenary's beast lunges at it and scares it off. The mercenary's pet then decides Ifa looks like a tasty snack and charges at her. Seika tries to box it in with crystals, but the thing is so hot they melt before they can even set. He's about to pull out the heavy-duty paper magic to delete it. Suddenly, someone chains the beast up and tells it to stay in its lane. The prince storms over and asks the leader Zech why his pet is off its leash. Zech claims the dragon was getting too close and he was just trying to be helpful. Seika asks who this clown is, and the prince explains Zech is the leader of some dragon-hunting mercenaries. Seika points out that scaring the dragon is a terrible plan that will just make it someone else's problem. Zech gets salty and brags about all the dragons he supposedly killed. Seika fires back that if he hadn't stepped in, Ifa would have been hurt by Zech's own monster. He was about a second away from turning that beast into a pile of ash. Zech swears he has total control, but the prince just tells him to beat it. He leaves, but you can tell he's fuming. Seika warns the prince that hiring those guys is going to bite him in the end. The dragon is basically a national landmark, and killing it without the queen's okay is a massive mistake. The prince basically tells him to stay in his lane, since he's the one calling the shots in this territory. Seika realizes he's talking to a brick wall, so he drops it and goes to check on Ifa. He asks her why she didn't use her magic, pointing out that she's a target if she can't defend herself when he's not around. Cecilio tries to play hero, saying it's normal to be paralyzed with fear when a giant lizard is breathing down your neck. But Seika isn't having it, reminding him that this is a private lesson between a master and his student. He tells Ifa that since she has power, she needs to either use it, run, or scream for help. Standing still like a deer in headlights is just a great way to get eaten. They hop back into the carriage a few minutes later. Seika knows he was being a bit of a jerk, but he figures tough love is the only way she'll learn. In his past life, he learned the hard way that fear is a luxury nobody can afford. He once lost a student to a dragon because of a split second of hesitation. He's not about to let history repeat itself with Ifa. The next morning, the duo hits the library and realizes this dragon's temper tantrum actually has a historical pattern. The dragon is ancient, and apparently 150 years ago, a female dragon showed up and turned the Guardian's world upside down. The big guy spent 50 years hiding in a cave like a hermit after that. Back then, the dragons raided the local livestock because they had some hungry hatchlings to feed. Eventually, the female dragon died of old age, and the Guardian went back to being a chill neighbor for the next century. Seika decides he needs to go check out the mountain personally. Ifa gets worried and tells him it's basically a suicide mission. He promises he's not looking for a fight, and if things get dicey, he'll just teleport out of there. He needs to see what's really going on, but he insists on going solo because keeping the amateurs away is just safer for everyone. That night while Seika is working, Ifa comes to the door terrified because one of the prince's maids is acting pushy. He tells her she doesn't have to go, and seeing how stressed she is, he lets her crash in his bed while he works. Once she's settled, Seika asks if she's actually considering the prince's offer to join the royal harem. Ifa shoots that down immediately and asks if she's becoming a burden to him. She promises she'll try to be more useful. He explains that being royalty is a pretty sweet deal, and he wouldn't stop her if she wanted that life. He admits he'd hate to see her go, but he knows their lives might go in different directions eventually. The next morning, Seika wakes up to an empty room, which he figured would happen. He goes to find the prince and grills him about the creepy late-night invitation. Cecilio apologizes, but then immediately tries to barter for Ifa like she's a used car. Seika reminds him that she isn't for sale. If she leaves, it's going to be because she actually wants to, not because of a paycheck. He then mentions he's heading to the dragon's nest, which gives the prince a few days to keep hitting on Ifa. Meanwhile, Seika hitches a ride on one of his monsters and scales the mountain until he finds the nest. The dragon wakes up in a bad mood and tries to incinerate him on the spot. He pops a shield and swaps out for a summoned beast that pins the dragon down with some magical red chains. He checks the nest, and Yuki is confused to find a fresh egg since they thought the dragon was a dude. Seika explains it's a simple biological pivot. The dragon swapped genders, which happens when certain species are lonely enough to reproduce without a partner. After the old female died, the guardian evolved just to keep the species going. Seika moves the egg to a better spot, so the baby doesn't end up as a frozen omelette. While he's busy, the prince's maid takes Ifa to a princess school, where they keep all the potential wives and backups. It's basically a high-end finishing school, where they learn how to act noble and live a comfortable life. Back on the mountain, Seika is surprised the dragon has actually calmed down and let him babysit the egg. He uses a bit of magic to keep it warm and cozy. When he tries to leave, the dragon gets clingy and pulls him back in for a snuggle. He starts wondering if he's ever going to be allowed to go home. Meanwhile, Ifa finds the prince in a meeting with his advisors. They're basically appraising her like a piece of art, and she has no idea what's going on. Cecilio tells her he's officially buying out her contract. Ifa says she isn't going anywhere without Seika's okay, but the prince says he'll just use a royal decree to make her his property anyway. He claims he's doing this because his maid warned him that Seika is a dangerous freak. He thinks life would be much simpler if Ifa just stayed in the castle and forgot about him. Ifa tells him where to shove his freedom and says she'd rather stay by Seika's side any day. The advisors tell the prince to just force her, claiming she'll thank them later once she's rich. The prince gives the signal and the guards grab her. Ifa tries to blast them with magic to get free. But the maid reminds her that magic doesn't work inside the royal sanctuary. She claims they're saving her from a literal monster by keeping her away from Seika. They prick her finger because apparently a little blood is all they need to sign the paperwork. Before they can finish the deal, the sky goes dark and the dragon smashes through the roof with Seika standing on its head like a boss. He says they're buddies now and he needs Ifa's fire magic to help the egg hatch. He calls for her and she happily jumps on board while the royals stand there in shock. She tells the prince she's choosing the monster over him every single time. The two of them fly off into the sunset on the back of a dragon. Ifa gives him a massive hug, feeling more relieved than she can even put into words. They get back to the nest, and Seika senses some unwanted guests, immediately pinning a fire beast to the wall. Zech and his mercenary goons crawl out of the shadows. They were planning to steal the hatchling, and Zech brags that the prince fell for his trap and now Seika is toast. He sends his beast to attack, but a massive wave of water sends it flying. Ifa steps up and tells them they're not touching a hair on Seika's head. Zech loses his cool and orders the full squad to attack, but Seika pulls out some white spirit flames that delete everything they touch. The mercenaries are terrified and try to run, but Seika's already got them cornered. The dragon looks ready to finish them off, but Seika just praises Ifa for finally using her head and her magic. Later, Seika lays it all out for the prince, who has the mercenaries tossed in the dungeon. When they're alone, the prince says thanks, but he mentions he still needs a big heroic win to secure the throne, and killing the dragon is his best bet. He asks Seika to go back up there and poison the nest like a coward. Seika is disgusted and refuses, so the prince tries to arrest him for manipulating the dragon. He also tells Ifa she's free to stay with him and live the life of luxury. Seika finally snaps, hits the prince's hand away, and tells him he's a spoiled brat who only wants things he didn't earn. He's not letting Ifa spend 5 minutes with a guy like him. The maid tries to keep the peace and asks Ifa what she actually wants. She says she wouldn't marry the prince if he were the last man alive. She's staying with Seika. The maid tells the prince to give it up and thanks Seika for his help, letting them have a final moment of peace. She tells the girl it's obvious she's head over heels for Seika and she's not going to meddle anymore. She mentions an old legend about a queen who could find a heart, even in the king of demons. As a parting gift, she gives Ifa the power to control light spirits and heal, wishing her luck with her monster. Somewhere else, a pack of demons is busy carving through local monsters. The captain, Zor, is annoyed at the human guide who promised an ancient cyclops would be enough to slow them down. Zor kills the guide on the spot and tells the boys they can have the body for dinner. He reminds himself that the mission is simple. He's here to find the hero and end her. A few days later, he invites the whole crew over to his house for the holidays. He says his dad wants to see the magic sword and meet the red-haired heroine, and the girls are actually hyped to go. Yuki asks if he's really okay with bringing them to the family lion's den. He knows it might be a mess, but he can't exactly say no to a noble request without looking suspicious. Gotta keep up appearances for the family name. They get to the mansion a few days later and are greeted by his brother Luft and the dad. He introduces the girls and keeps things professional. Ifa says hi, Luft is polite, and then Glai shows up to ruin the mood. Glai is still salty about his loss and immediately tries to challenge Seika to a rematch to win back his honor. Amiyu steps in and offers to school him instead, which Seika thinks is hilarious. Glai agrees and tells Seika to be the referee, making sure no magic is allowed. Seika feels a disturbance in the force, but plays it cool so his friends don't panic. The duel starts, and Amiyu immediately walks right into one of Glai's basic traps. Glai pulls a fast one by chucking his sword while faking a magic chant. Amiyu calls foul, but Glai just shrugs and says he won with a prank, not a spell. Feeling himself, Glai decides he's finally ready to take on Seika. But then Fiona shows up, and everyone freezes because she's basically the holy princess celebrity. Later, Yuki asks for the tea, and Seika explains that Fiona's bloodline is basically royal-grade holy water. Fiona tells the squad to relax and enjoy the next few days of forced bonding. At dinner, the princess chats with Seika, who casually drops that he's already been dragonback riding. His family looks like they just saw a ghost. His mom actually asks him to write home more often, which is rich considering she used to ignore him. Later, he tells Yuki that Fiona gives off some major, creepy ex-wife energy. Amiyu walks in looking bored and asks what he's doing after graduation. He says he'll tag along on her adventures, which gets her hyped. The girl is basically vibrating with excitement. The next day, Seika plays tour guide for Fiona and Amiyu. The princess acts like she's never seen a market before and clings to Seika's hand, making the others jealous. They're exploring a construction site when some wood falls. Glai and Amiyu jump in with magic to save the day. Fiona scolds Seika for just standing there, so he decides to buy her some silence. He buys her hair clips and summons a magic mirror, which makes her forget she was even mad. The next morning, Glai warns him that Fiona is a political shark who can literally see the future, just like her mom, the Oracle. Glai thinks she's only here for Amiyu, the prophecy girl, and tells Seika to keep his distance so he doesn't mess up the plan. So naturally, Seika starts ghosting the princess as much as possible. Amiyu catches him hiding and drags him to the terrace where Fiona is playing solo chess. He offers to play a round and she's game for the challenge. He plays with only his pawns and king and still wins, which is a total flex. Fiona decides they need a rematch with actual stakes this time. The loser has to do whatever the winner wants, no questions asked. Even though it sounds like a trap, Seika agrees to the bet. He figures he can handle whatever she asks. While they play, he realizes Fiona actually views the common people as a threat to the crown, which is pretty dark. He tells her she's impossible to beat since she knows every move before he makes it. Fiona laughs and realizes Glai has been blabbing about her secret. She admits she sees the future, but it's more like a messy choose-your-own-adventure book that keeps changing. All she really wants is a break from the royal expectations. Seika forfeits the match, but Fiona insists she wasn't using her cheat codes. He says the best way to bond is to share a fear and a dream. The princess admits she used to be scared of stew because she thought it'd explode into bread. Then she says her dream is to save a kid from a great void, which sounds suspiciously like Amiyu's fate. She won't confirm it though because spoilers might ruin the timeline. He promises to have her back, and she's happy because she just won a favor from him. Meanwhile, Zor and his demon buddies are finishing their pre-game prep for the big invasion. The trip home starts, and Fiona apologizes to Luft for any royal drama she caused. As they leave, Seika starts feeling sick, which Glai finds incredibly pathetic. He asks his brother how he'd handle a surprise ambush on the road. Glai says he'd laid the charge to keep the princess safe, even if he thinks it won't happen. And right on cue, a massive explosion rips through the air. The party is officially getting crashed by bandits. Seika uses his magic to swish away arrows and spells like they're annoying flies. Glai deletes a bandit, but Fiona asks Seika to keep the rest alive for questioning. So he just wraps them up in magic vines until they can't move. He explains to the girls that the danger has been neutralized for now. Fiona thanks him, knowing that bringing these guys in alive is going to be a huge political win. The criminals were expecting backup that's definitely not coming. Seika had already dealt with the reinforcements before they even got close. They finally reach the city, and it's time for the big goodbyes. The princess says she liked hanging out with people her age, and tells Seika she's his new permanent shadow. That night, Zor and the demons are moving at full speed to delete the heroine from existence. Zor gives a pep talk, reminding everyone that failure is not an option. The next day, the director tells Seika he's in charge of the New Year's party. He decides he's done hiding in the shadows and is ready to play the part of a normal guy. He tells Yuki he's ready to smoke any enemy that tries to ruin the party. He warns her that they're about to have a very long night. Meanwhile, the demon squad is already at the city gates. The plan is to cause a scene, lure the students out, and kill the girl. Gull starts the chaos by attacking through a thick magical mist. The other demons brag about how much stronger they've gotten under their captain's wing. They see a figure running, and Lon sends his shadow wolves to fetch a snack. Nearby, Merritt is having the time of his life dodging daggers from Mabel. Mabel asks who he's working for, but he just smiles, ready to make her his first trophy. Mabel tries to slice and dice Merritt with her best moves, but he just dances around her like he's bored. Even after getting stabbed, he just laughs it off, saying his captain gave him insane elemental resistance. He lunges for the kill, but only ends up smashing a paper deco. Zor realizes they're fighting an entire army of magical paper spirits, not actual students. They hear Seika's voice echoing through the city as he reveals the whole thing was a setup. Merritt gets his head lopped off by a spirit, while Seika notes that random bandits were a better challenge. Pierce tries to use his evil eye, but Seika summons a snake that stops the demon's heart with one look. Lonnie tries to call for backup, but his beast is deleted before it can even roar. Then the magic snake decides to turn the other demon into a snack. Zor finally realizes they picked a fight with the wrong person. He tells Gull to run and warn the others that the real Demon King is actually playing for the humans. Seika drops a lava nuke on the area, turning almost the entire demon squad into charcoal. Only Gull manages to limp away into the shadows. But as soon as Gull leaves town, a delayed curse cuts his heart out and he drops dead. Seika snaps the curse charm, and Yuki is terrified that he doesn't even need items to kill people anymore. Mabel shows up looking for the assassin she was supposed to be fighting. Seika admits he already took out the trash and tells her to keep it between them. A few days later, Amiyu is about to give a speech when Imperial soldiers arrest her for treason. They drag her away by force, claiming she's working with demons. Seika tells the class they're delusional if they think she's a traitor. He finds out from the director that some high-level politicians want the heroine dead. He's ready to bust her out, but the director tells him to stay out of it for his own good. Naturally, he ignores her and calls his dragon friend to go pay the capital a visit. Yuki warns him that starting a war will just repeat his past life, but he doesn't care. He's ready to burn down anyone who tries to touch his friends. He invades the castle, using his paper spirits to find Amiyu's underground dungeon cell. The alarm sounds, and the guards start swarming him like angry hornets. He responds with a magnetic storm that topples towers and clears out the archers. When more soldiers block the path, he just vaporizes them with white flames and sickle spirits. He's cutting through the royal guard like they're made of paper. Nothing is going to stop him from reaching Amiyu's cage. He and his summons wreck the last line of defense and kick in her cell door. She's shocked he's there, but thinks she can just clear her name legally if she stays. He has to break the news to her that she's the legendary heroine. He explains the Empire is terrified of her power and won't stop until she's underground. Gly tries to jump them on the way out, but Fiona steps in and kills the vibe. She admits the Empire just wants to avoid a war since demons and humans are currently chill. They think the heroine's mere existence is an invitation for a bloodbath. Fiona says she'll let them both walk out alive as long as Seika stops breaking her castle. He realizes she's been manipulating him with the friendship act since day one. After a tense standoff, she finally waves them through and lets him take Amiyu away. Fiona tells Gly to back off and leads them to a getaway carriage. They're headed for the city of Jada to hide out for a while. Amiyu says a bittersweet goodbye to the princess as they drive off. But Seika gets the last laugh by reviving every single guard he killed, ruining Fiona's cover story. She just watches them go, wishing them luck on their run from the law. Fiona whispers to the dark that the real Demon King is finally home. It was basically the dark secret she'd been sitting on for years. The following morning, Fiona drops a massive truth bomb letter to Ifa and Mabel. Meanwhile, Seika and Amiyu finally roll into Jada to find their squad mid-brawl, feeling pretty hyped about their future as the world's next big-shot adventurers.